5, that's heart-wrenching, right? We've all gone through this realization around that age that the world that we believe in and see will one day all be gone. That moment, I remember it so clearly because I thought, that's not fair. Why would any species be made or created that knew that fact? That's cruel. It's better to...
Every human being has this moment, the moment you realize you are going to die. Most people accept it. He did not. This is Dr. David Sinclair, a Harvard scientist who has spent 30 years asking a question most of us avoid. What if aging is not inevitable? And what if everything we believe about growing old is wrong? This is Synthesize, where we turn long podcast conversations into their most important ideas. We have been told the same story our entire lives. You are born, you grow, you age, you die. It feels like a law of nature. But what if it is just a limitation of our current science?
Alzheimer's. But what's underlying that, what's really causing about 150 to 200,000 people every day to die, is the underlying universal process we call aging. And for far too long, we've ignored it or accepted it as natural, therefore acceptable. And I fundamentally reject the idea that aging, just because it's natural...
That is a radical shift. Because throughout history, natural has never meant unchangeable. Disease was natural. Flight was impossible. Even infection was once a death sentence, until it was not. Right now, not in theory, not in the distant future, experiments are already happening, quietly, behind lab doors.
Aging, longevity, and age reversal for 30 years. The technology now that we have in my lab that is used every day by my students literally reverses the age of tissues in animals, in human tissue that we grow in the lab. And the first human trials to test this are going to be performed in about a month from now. And if it works...
That sentence should feel bigger than it sounds. Because if this works, aging does not just slow down, it becomes something we can control. So how do you reset age? Not with creams, not with supplements, but by changing the instructions inside your cells.
Model, what we're doing is we're introducing a set of 3 genes into this optic nerve at the back of the eye and turning them on for 6 to 8 weeks. And those 3 genes are what we now know reset safely, apparently safely, reset the age of cells, including nerves, by about 70%.
Think of your body less like a machine and more like software. It is not breaking. It is forgetting how to run properly. And this research is trying to reinstall the original code. Skepticism is fair, because this sounds impossible. But then came the data.
About 80 to 85 years. So they're really old mice. They're really frail. And just any extension in their lifespan and health would be a great thing. And they got an additional 100% lifespan extension. Additional. So
that would be like an 80-year-old living.
That is not a small improvement. That is doubling remaining life. And more importantly, these were not young animals. They were already old, which means this is not about extending youth. It is about reversing decline. At first, this required complex gene therapy, something expensive, complicated, hard to scale. But then something unexpected happened.
It's a drink, and within 4 weeks, we can rejuvenate them. Not with these genes anymore that we're giving humans. That's the older technology. The new technology is something you can swallow in a mouse and rejuvenate them in 4 weeks. It's normal for my students to say, oh yeah, we just rejuvenated the ear. We just rejuvenated the...
That is the shift, from science experiment to something that could eventually reach millions. Because the difference between a breakthrough and a revolution is accessibility. Here is the part most people misunderstand. Aging is not just wear and tear. It is something stranger.
And dysfunctional, and you get pain, you get inflammation, and you die from a disease. I look at the body like it's a computer. It's software, and we can reinstall the software. In my lab, we believe we've found the way to do that, and we see the evidence of that. So the body is a carrier of information from our parents.
Your DNA does not disappear. Your cells do not just run out. Instead, they lose instructions. They forget their role. And that leads to one of the simplest and most powerful ideas in this entire field.
In my young cells, that control system, these chemicals on the DNA molecule, these methyls, are getting erased.
So aging is an identity crisis of the cells.
It absolutely is. Well put.
The cells forget what their job is.
Yes.
Your cells are still there, but they are confused. A skin cell stops acting like skin. A nerve cell stops functioning properly. And that confusion is what we experience as aging. Now here's where it gets personal. Because while the science is advancing, you are not powerless right now.
Old you are in your organs as well. So doing the right thing. So what are those things? Let's tick off some of the major things that people should be doing. And they can have a big impact. They can lengthen your life by a decade just by doing some of the major things. So we know that on average, people can live 14 years longer.
This is not about perfection. It is about direction. Every decision, sleep, food, stress, movement, either preserves that information or slowly corrupts it. You are already aging. The question is how fast? We treat diseases like separate problems: cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's. But what if they all share the same root?
A link between aging and disease.
This might be the most important point that I make today. When you reverse aging, diseases of aging go away or are cured. And in my lab, including many types of cancer as well.
That reframes everything, because instead of fighting hundreds of diseases individually, you target the one process underneath them all: aging itself. Now zoom out. Imagine a world where aging is optional, not eliminated overnight, but manageable.
Why do we need to get ready?
Well, because it'll be massive social change. If you can choose how old you want to be, and people don't die at 80 anymore, let's say they can live till 120 or beyond, there's big changes. There's social security issues.
Careers would stretch across decades. Relationships would evolve differently. Retirement might disappear entirely. And the biggest shift of all, time, would stop feeling scarce. And maybe the most honest insight in this entire conversation is not scientific. It is human.
This on social media, for $1 billion, would you swap with Warren Buffett?
No, absolutely not.
Right. So there's no money in the world that you want to be old, right?
Yeah.
It's not worth it. In other words, youth is more valuable than $1 billion. It may be the most valuable thing you can.
We spend our lives chasing money, status, success. But deep down, we already know the truth. Time, in a healthy body, is the most valuable thing we have. 3 ideas to take with you. First, aging may not be inevitable. It might be a solvable problem. Second, your daily choices are already shaping how fast you age. Not someday, right now. And third, the future of medicine may shift from treating disease to preserving youth itself. But here's the real question. If you could choose, not just how long you live, but how long you stay young, what would you do differently today? If this kind of breakdown helps you think differently, you will probably enjoy the next video too.